Hey everybody, welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast, brought to you by WinBet, our exclusive gaming sponsor all season long here on the RotoWire series of podcasts this fall. Jeff Erickson and Chris Liss here. The team of destiny moves on yet again. They don't get as much help from other people, but it's still a pretty good week for you. Losing all those people in Minnesota had to be nice.
Yeah, Team of Destiny had the Eagles. It wasn't too much of a sweat. Maybe early on, Jets were scoring points, and then they kept missing the extra point, which was nice. Yeah, it was good. It was nice to see Jared Goff, who I started over Matt Ryan in the league that I have Jalen Hurts, and this is a playoff NFFC team, probably. So it was a big deal that I made the right call on Goff over Ryan. And I the tiebreaker was that Goff, I realized, is a contraction of go off. Goff, yes. Go off. So once I realized that, I knew I needed to start Goff. And not only did he, produce fantasy-wise, but he knocked out 5 people on the Vikings from the pool. So there's now 23 left. Fortunately, the Broncos lost last night, but 23 left. So, it's good to be alive, and it's good to see a couple other people perish.
Yeah, for sure. I was on the Chiefs last night in my double elimination pool, and then – well, I'm in 2 of them, actually, and one of them I had the Rams because for some reason I still had them. So it was an obvious, easy coasting win. And then, of course, the Chiefs, they won. They weren't great. You wrote about this. Their offense still isn't awesome. It's still kind of but the defense is, really kicking butt again. And was it really as simple as moving Chris Jones to the inside? Is that really what changed everything for them?
I guess. I mean, the Broncos actually moved the ball a little bit. Like, it wasn't that bad. It was just that Bridgewater just threw these dumb interceptions and like that really terrible. Like when they bumped into the punt return, they bumped into the guy and they called that a fumble. Like the guy was like blocking his own. I mean, now next time I'm just going to throw the guy's teammate into the returner if I can while he's trying to fair catch the ball. So there was a lot of like just little things like that. But I thought the problem was, the Chiefs moved the ball pretty well. But Mahomes, like, he had some drop. There were some drops that were not his fault, but his touch is just not that good. It's like he's Brett Favre out there wanting to sling the ball around and do stuff, and they're trying to make him into Drew Brees. And defense is like, okay, you got to be Drew Brees. You got to have the perfect touch everywhere. And his receivers, I think, are a little frustrated too. And plus, Pringle and Robinson, those guys aren't good. Hardman, it's really only Hill and Kelsey. And so they become a lot easier to stop. So the Chiefs are not out of the woods yet, but their defense did play well. But also the Broncos, Javonte Williams played great, but the rest of them just didn't really step up. Judy had a drop. They had a chance and they just couldn't really, they just made too many mistakes.
Well, how about that sequence at the end of the first half by the Broncos? Deciding to go for it, running and they weren't quite sure what they were doing on that go for it play too. And so they're moving Williams around like 3 seconds before the snap, and then he got stuffed. It was like 4th and 2. It wasn't really like 4th and inches either.
Right.
They really weren't committed to it. But here's the whole. I'm always on team go for it. But in this case, less than 2 minutes, you don't get the advantage of field position.
Right.
I'd say they could have. I think they should have just taken the points there.
I was cool. They went for it twice. They went for it on 4th and short. They went for it on 4th and 8 where they could have kicked a field goal too. I was fine with getting the touchdown against the Chiefs in that game. They were down, I think 13-3 at the time or something like that. And
it was 10-3. It wasn't even.
It was 10-3. I'm fine with them. I mean, I could see them kicking the field goal, go 10-6. That's fine too. But I had no problem with them going for it. But like when it's 4th and 2, I don't know. Williams, he's great, but he had to like run around a lot, and the Chiefs defense was getting a lot of penetration in the backfield. It wasn't just like, you want to have a straight ahead play on 4th and 2. You don't want to like dance around or something. And Bridgewater is just not good enough. He's not quick. He's not very fast.
Right.
He might've been a little injured. Like he's just not like a good quarterback to have on 4th and 2. They just that. And who else made a terrible I can't remember who it was.
The Lions.
Oh, the Ravens. It was the Ravens to get the 2-point conversion. It's like, yeah, Lamar should have hit Mark Andrews on that play, but it's like that might have well been 4th and 7, 4th and goal from the 7, not the 2, if you're going to call that play. It's like if you got 2 yards and you have Lamar Jackson, like, can't you just like do a draw or something? Or like, I don't know. It just seems like too complicated to get 2 yards. And
I think it was a bit of an RPO, and TJ Watt read it and put a lot of pressure on.
So he just had to
Jackson.
Get rid of it too quickly.
Yes, I think that's exactly what happened. Is that just Jackson didn't have enough time, which is why he didn't make a great throw. Andrews
Right.
got a hand on it, but it was going away from him there.
I mean, that's he should just loft it high though, because it's like a high throw, a little arc has more room for error. Whereas a line drive throw, if it's off, it's off. He's not going to get it.
For sure.
So anyway, back to the Denver game though. Yeah, that was, I mean, it's not going for it. It's just when you see plays kind of fail from the outset that don't even come close. I mean, I guess you could just say the defense read it well or played well in that play, but I don't know. You should be able to get a play that has a chance. That's all. Just have a chance.
So the decision by the Ravens to go for it, I have no problem with that. I think they were worn down. I think they were beat up a lot. And they played a long overtime game earlier this year against the Vikings. They've been in the wars. They've had lots of injuries. They lost both corners in this game. I think that's a big part of that calculation there too. I think they had a chance to win the game. They did it.
Yeah, I'm fine with the decision to go. I also agree. Like you're helping the Steelers. You're helping yourself. You're like, let's just do this coin flip now because it's going to save us all a lot of aches and pains and difficulty if we just settle this here and now. So I do agree with that. A lot of people said, I know Seslowski passed on a note saying they have the best kicker in the history of the game. So if it comes down to that, that's an advantage. But Boswell had a bad game that game. But Boswell's been drilling.
Point was hideous. Oh my God.
But Boswell's been drilling 50 plus all year. Boswell's been like a low key one, not as good as Tucker, but one of the best kickers in the league this year. Look at Boswell. He's kicked a lot of long ones too. I don't think it's an advantage. Obviously it's a coin flip. Who gets the ball first? You don't have much secondary to stop them. The Steelers were the team that was driving in the second half. I don't know. Lamar wasn't playing very well. I don't know. I don't think this. I think that if you're a 4.5 point favorite going into the game, you're a 1 point favorite in overtime. I mean, I think it's okay to go for 2. Maybe it was just that Watt made a great play and blew up the play, but it just seems like that throw that would be the same thing on 4th and goal from the 5 or 7 as the 2. It's sort of like if you were on the 5, you kick the extra point. If you're on the 2, you might go for 2. They basically executed a play that was as though they were from the 5.
Perhaps. I just think it's like they want to go with their throw it to his best target. Right. So I think so. But anyhow, I thought that was an interesting decision, interesting result. Obviously, all sorts of wild results like that, where tough decisions and some blew up spectacularly. The Lions. I mean, going for it on their own territory while protecting a lead. That was interesting.
That was the right call, though. That was the right call. It was.
You
totally
think so?
Right call. Yeah, totally.
Why?
Because there was 4 minutes left in the game, right? And so if they get the first down, they can win the game. They can run out the clock. If they don't get the first down, there's a short field, and Minnesota, even if they score the touchdown, which they did, still is going to give them the ball 2 minutes left to win the game, which they did. The timing made it perfect because if you punt, you basically have Minnesota run out the whole clock to win it with the field goal if you punt. But if you get it, you can run out the whole clock. And if you miss it, you probably still have time on the back end, which is what happened. It was definitely the right call to go for it.
Okay. I didn't think so at the time, but.
And it was 1 yard. It was like a short, they just couldn't get it. I mean, they got stuffed, but.
They ran that pass play and,
Oh, right. Yeah, I can't remember it was a. But they easily would they throw it short of the sticks or what happened? I can't remember.
No, he got sacked on the play. Right?
All right, Goff. Oh, he fumbled too, right?
Yeah, it was
He Goffed. Yeah, it was the Goff. Yeah, but Goff redeemed himself at the end.
The Vikings. I mean, the coverage on the touchdown. I mean, I wanted to see that result, but it was painful watching that coverage. Playing like 10 yards off on a 7-yard pattern, basically. Right. And
he's only in the end zone. I mean,
it's only your game.
So awesome though. That was just so awesome. They drove so methodically and they got down to they even threw a little out to get down to the 8-yard line because Goff doesn't have the cannon, even the 15 or 20, the angle you have to take to zip it in the end zone is hard. Whereas you get down to the 8, you don't really have to the angle widens quite a bit. You don't have to throw it nearly as far and, anybody that's open, you can zip it in there, and he did. And what a great finish! And it helped my fantasy team. It helped we knocked 5 people out down to 23 people in the circa. So it's still 23. We're not in the finals yet, but we're almost done with the marbles, and we need to get to the walk across the bridge. So
is there a tiebreaker if there's, say, 3 people to make it all the way through?
Yeah, no, there's no tiebreaker. You just split it if you make it all the way through, and it's a little so we have the Broncos available this week, and I won't tell you the odds, but I thought, that's no brainer. They're home against the Lions. Lions just got to win. But there's other teams, like the Giants play the Giants with Mike Glennon are at the Chargers, and the Jaguars are at the Titans. Like,
wow.
I thought we were going to be like,
copious options.
We're on an island, with like this one good option. Everyone's going to be screwed. But now I looked at it and I'm like, there's a lot of options this week. And I'm thinking, okay, the real kicker is Christmas Day. Christmas Day is a beast. A few people have the Packers left. Actually, half the people have the Packers left, and they play the Browns at home on Christmas Day. So that's going to be the the easy.
That has a whole Cowboys Raiders sort of. Yeah,
it does. It does. And there's also the Colts are at the Cardinals, right? And we have the Cardinals available, but I think we also have the Titans and Niners available who play each other on Thursday night, which is part of that slate. And I think we're going to save the Niners and Titans and we don't know what the line will be in that or who's going to be favored even yet. But just make sure we get that right and then pull the Cowboys. One of them will be the Cowboys. But that'll knock out some people. But this may go the distance because there's too many good options left. And there's got to be an upset this week. There's got to be the Giants beat the Chargers or the Jaguars beat the Titans or something like that, or the Lions beat the Broncos to knock people out because there's a lot of good options left.
Yeah, there are. But that Christmas thing, I mean, that's none of those 3 games are good games. Right?
Well, the Packers-Browns is pretty good. Packers at home. If the Packers need it, I mean, I assume they will because there's 18 weeks, so 16, they'll need it. So the Browns at Green Bay, I guess if it's like a horrible weather game and you got Nick Chubb just road grading them, maybe that'll work. But the Packers will be 7-point favorites, I think. And then in the the Cardinals may be 6-point favorites, but I don't want to mess with Jonathan Taylor.
That's just danger.
Yeah. And so, I mean, probably Wentz will give it up. But then the Titans-Niners is going to be a real, they're all bad.
We'll see who the Titans still have left and who
the Niners have. Right. It's weeks away. But that's the week where there may be some untimely demises.
Indeed. Before we start talking more about these and some of the games that happened, a quick note from our friends at WynnBET. There's one thing we appreciate here at RotoWire. It's making good decisions. And even more so, making the right decision. Listen up, folks. I have an incredible offer for you with RotoWire's newest partner, WynnBET, the premier digital casino and sportsbook app. WynnBET is now the exclusive sponsor for RotoWire's fantasy podcast. WynnBET brings you all the latest action with a user-friendly interface, moneyline bets, boosted parlays, over-unders, round robins, live betting, and so much more are at your fingertips. Want a break from sports betting? Head into WynnBET's digital casino and take a spin on roulette, double down in blackjack, slam the slots, or try your hand at baccarat. WynnBET is currently available in 7 states, Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Michigan, New Jersey, Tennessee, and Virginia, while rapidly expanding. At WynnBET, the possibilities are limitless. WynnBET is currently offering all RotoWire listeners a risk-free bet up to $500 on your first wager. Download WynnBET now. That's WYNNBET. WynnBET, the exclusive partner for RotoWire's fantasy podcast. All right, here we are talking about week 13, talking about Survivor. We haven't really talked about the team of destiny and getting by, riding the back of Gardner Minshew against the Jets with the Eagles.
What a beast, Gardner Minshew. What a great man he is. And he played well. I mean, he was accurate. He threw the ball away when he was in trouble. He didn't make mistakes. The Eagles ran the ball. The Jets defense is terrible. I mean, the Jets actually look good on offense. The first 3 drives, they got touchdowns. They missed the extra point on all 3, which was hilarious. So they missed the extra point on the first 2 and then went for 2 and failed on the third. So they were up 18. They scored 18-14. They were up. But the Eagles kept scoring too. And, Miles Sanders got hurt, which is too bad. He was looking great. The Eagles just played well. In the second half, they shut down Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson showed a couple signs. Elijah Moore is by far the number 1 guy there. Davis got hurt again. He's just now targeting him early in the season. Zach Wilson wasn't using Moore, and it was only Flacco and White Lotus that did it. I finally finished White Lotus on HBO. It's an excellent show. But White
Okay.
Lotus, Mike White could not was actually targeting more, and so did Flacco, and so did I think even Josh Johnson. But Wilson just wouldn't, and now he is, and it's he's a top 20 receiver probably at this point. But the Eagles just ground them down, played defense in the second half, and dominated. And I felt so confident about this pick. They were only 5-point favorites with Minshew at when it tipped off.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always dangerous because, our song, you got to fear the underdog or you will not survive. But I just was like, it was the perfect setup. The Eagles had lost. They're going on bye next week. The Jets had won. Minshew is a solid backup. The Eagles are going to play hard for the backup because they couldn't rely on, you're going to play harder when your backup's in there. If you're playing a doormat, it's like, we got to get this win. We all have to do extra. It was just like the perfect setup, and they played great. And the defense didn't show up till the second half, but it was just like, I just wasn't nervous for this game for some reason. I've been nervous like for the Falcons and the Bears. The Bears, I was the most nervous. This was just so clean. I just felt like I never really was too concerned.
Well, I mean, it started off with some character building. The Jets had that big kickoff return to start the game. They score on their first drive. Of course, they missed the extra point. You're like, oh, okay, this is some Team of Destiny stuff.
Yeah, totally.
They missed their second extra point. They go for 2 on their third and don't make it. I mean, there's all these, like every time they're scoring, like, okay, we're behind, but it's only 18-14 now. We're not down 7. We're down 4. And,
and also, like, there was a fourth down that the Eagles went for, and then they were like a couple inches short. And Sirianni challenged the spot, which never works ever. And it worked. I could not believe it. We just like had the Team of Destiny going. Like, can you believe we won a spot challenge? That never happens.
They got that cheap PI. Keep a drive going for Goddard there. I think
they had
they
like
still
3 or 4 calls.
But
there were a lot of calls that we got. It was like the refs are on our side. So it was awesome. I mean, they got some help, but they played well. Minshew's a beast. And Jake Elliott hit all his field goals. I mean, like some of them long. And he just didn't miss a field goal. I mean, that's a huge advantage. So
as we've seen, I mean, the Jets can't even convert an extra point.
Yeah, it was big, and it was great. It was easy, and then the Vikings losing. I mean, I would have liked to see some more losses, but there was no, the Eagles were the most heavily used team. And here's the thing about the whole pot odds thing I do for Survivor. It's great, like knowing nothing else. You obviously want to use the team with the best pot odds, the team that's least owned. But the Vikings had better pot odds than the Eagles. We had them available. Actually, the Cardinals had even better pot odds, and we didn't use them either. But it's better to just win. That's the first requirement is to win. And if the problem with just the pot odds is like, you want to look at payout, but like survival is paramount. So it was great. And we'll see next week. We have some choices, and hopefully, I don't think you were joking in Twitter saying like people glommed onto the Eagles because of our pick, but I don't think they did it because of that. I think there's some very strange things happening. There's $1 million bonus in this pool, which we can't get if you go all 20 weeks and survive, and you got to use the Bucks or the Chiefs on week 20, and week 20 is week 18 because the Thanksgiving and the Christmas had weeks.
Right.
And like really, you're not going to use the Bucks or Chiefs. So a couple of people used the Vikings, I think, who had the Bucks and Chiefs available and got eliminated this week. That's. But there's still people. I realized, wow, there's a bunch of people. I thought all the people who had the Chiefs and Bucks available were going to use them this week, and they didn't. So more people use the Eagles for that reason.
Yeah, it's just there was no other carnage. There was no I was looking at like the other picks, and everybody else got by.
Yeah, that's it.
The Chiefs got by.
Dolphins.
Yeah, that wasn't even really. I mean, it was close because the Dolphins' offense was just kind of lukewarm, but it wasn't really in doubt either.
The Mike Glennon Giants are, there with the Jaguars and Texans and Jets. I mean, the regular Giants are more like, another, the Falcons and that level of team. But the Glennon Giants are like the Jets or worse. And so, I really don't like that. I don't really care because they'll get a high pick, but I really don't like that for like Survivor because I don't want to use teams against the Giants. I don't want to get knocked out by the Giants. But, we may have to use them and go against them again. We did it once with the Chiefs when we had to, but the Glennon Giants, it's just, I suppose Barkley could go off if they ever gave him carries, but they're not blocking anybody. And the offense is just terrible.
Yeah, it is. It really is. they're a bottom 3 offense right now.
Maybe bottom 1, with Glennon.
Yeah, they might be. They might be. As you're right. I do have to force myself to rewatch that game because the Bengals were going on at that time, and anytime the Bengals weren't playing, I was pretty much watching the Team of Destiny, and then I was watching
like
Team
everyone
of
else in
Destiny's
America.
primary opponent, Minnesota. Those are the 3 games I focused on the most. So the Giants were just kind of off to the side. I mean, I had the Grid Channel on and all that, but going back to the Eagles, though, by the way, so they're on bye this week. Is there a debate over who the quarterback should be coming out of the bye, or is it definitely Jalen Hurts?
I think Hurts has a high ankle sprain, so he may be out 2-3 weeks, 4 weeks, right? And his game is running. He's not, a statue there. So I think he just may be hurt. And then if Minshew plays like this a couple more times, then there will be a debate because Hurts isn't that good. Hurts is a good fantasy quarterback. He's not a good, he's an okay real life quarterback. And I think Minshew is good. I mean, look at, I know it's Urban Meyer. It's a different regime there this year, but Jacksonville was a disaster the last few years. And Minshew was credible as a quarterback in a terrible environment. And so what if he's actually really good? I mean, he's probably at least like Taylor Heineke. Like he's at least like one of those guys that you get for, I can't believe the Jaguars traded him for a 6th round pick. That was just ridiculous. But but like he may be like actually good. And then what if he's better than that? I mean, like how would Gardner Minshew do if he were on the Patriots? Would he be Mac Jones? Maybe, I mean, so this guy's in his 3rd year. I don't know. It's insane that the Eagles just got this guy for free, basically.
The Philly Talk Radio is going to have 2 weeks to chew this over. It's going to be awesome to watch from afar. I think if you're an Eagles fan, you're probably like, got to deal with this now because it's not fun having a quarterback controversy. But I agree. Like P&O was like, he thinks P&O said, I can't. Gardner Minshew is a top 32 quarterback. I'd agree with that take
for sure. He's already like Taylor Heineke, in that like, 15 to 25 range somewhere now, I think. But the question is, we've only seen him in the worst organization in football. I mean, what if he's actually good? I mean, if Mac Jones got drafted by the Jaguars, we wouldn't know that Mac Jones was good, and I just think like
Gardner Minshew is better than Daniel Jones. Let's make it happen.
He is better than Daniel Jones. I mean, he is. I mean, Daniel Jones is in a horrendous situation too, but I think Gardner Minshew is better than Daniel Jones. He's just got better. He's got better feel. Daniel Jones is a better athlete. He just doesn't have the touch and he doesn't have the feel. And Minshew has a bit of a feel for playing quarterback. So, I mean, again, like quarterback doesn't matter unless you have like one of the 7 guys. Like if you have Minshew or Mayfield or Kirk Cousins, maybe a little better than those guys, maybe. But like, unless you have Aaron Rodgers or Patrick Mahomes, and Mahomes has been shaky this year, but Rodgers or, non-suspended Deshaun Watson or a couple of players, just get a guy who can play, who has feel. Yeah,
I think so. And I think there's a lot of teams like the Giants. I mean, Houston, I wouldn't want to put them into that morass of lack of talent in Houston. Same with Jacksonville right now. I mean, I think you wrote about this. Like Trevor Lawrence is getting no help at all, but he's also not showing anything either.
You got to show something. You got to make it. I mean, if you would put like Patrick Mahomes in this Jacksonville scenario, he would look bad, but he would also like escape making a sick throw to some guy wide open who would once in a while make a catch and make a play. I mean, there's nothing that Lawrence is doing that looks like that.
Right.
There would be, it's just, there's nothing he's adding. He's not bringing any, he's not making good throws, good reads, he's a little bit mobile. Sometimes he scrambles. Okay. There's nothing wrong with his arm strength, but there's nothing plus that he's bringing to the table. And I get it. Like there's real life NFL defenses coming at you and you're getting no help from your system, but man, you'd think like individually he would make a play now and then.
Yeah, you would think so. I mean, the Jaguars, they have everybody fumble. James Robinson fumbles, gets benched for a while. Carlos Hyde fumbles. They had LaVisca in the backfield for a little bit. This is just a dumpster fire situation here. I've got Robinson some places, and I don't even want to start him anymore.
It's bad. It's the whole, it's like I have Barkley, and Barkley's catching some passes, which is giving him a little value, but it's like when your player is connected to a terrible offense, it's just very hard for him to do anything, even if he's a good player. And it's worse in the case of Jacksonville because the coach is like benching him and switching to Carlos Hyde. I mean, Booker comes in now for the Giants, but it's not like punitive. They're just like easing Saquon back from his ankle injury.
Exactly. We'll talk a little Bengals here in a second, and then the atrocity that was the Niners Seahawks game, but an interesting atrocity. But first, quick note from Yahoo: the NFL season is heating up, and Yahoo is going big on daily fantasy football this season. There will be a ton of big prize contests throughout the year on Yahoo, including their multi-entry contest now being shark-free. To celebrate Yahoo going big on DFS, as well as Yahoo Daily Fantasy becoming shark-free, Yahoo is giving all users the opportunity to claim free $10 in site credit. Users can take advantage of this free $10 site credit offer to join any paid contest, including Yahoo's biggest contest, the weekly $1 million DFS NFL Baller Contest. The weekly $1 million contest features $1 million in total prizes, including first place, receiving $100,000 and tons of overlay and prizes. Play daily fantasy football on Yahoo this season. Visit sports.yahoo.com/dailyfantasy/welcome to claim the free $10 offer to get started. All right. Okay, my Bengals, they were super frustrating. They had one of those first 20 minutes of the game. It was almost like the Cleveland game where everything went wrong. Even when things, so many things could have gone right, but they just didn't. The Jamar Chase play was just emblematic of the entire day. Should have been a touchdown, instead became an interception. I
forgot that it was picked up. I wrote Jamar Chase has disappeared and he dropped a would-be long pass. I forgot that he didn't just drop it. He dropped it into the defender's hands. It got tipped into the defender's hands.
Yeah. And that was the day in a nutshell right there. The thing is, Justin Herbert was awesome. He hit some deep balls, but there was a stretch there where the Bengals were taking it to them. They
24,
had the momentum.
22. Yeah, they couldn't convert those 2-point conversions.
Well, so after the first touchdown, T. Higgins makes an amazing high point catch, and he's playing like a number one receiver right now. They decide, they hem and haw. Okay, we're going to go for 2, but we're running out of time. Let's call a timeout. Fine. They come back and have a delay of game penalty, which is just absurd. And then they go, okay, well, I guess now we'll kick the extra point, and they missed it. I mean, and they were chasing the rest of the way because they got it to 24-16, score the touchdown to make it 24-22. They go for 2 from the 1-yard line because the Chargers committed a penalty. So they got it half the distance, and they couldn't get that 1 yard. Got stuffed. Mixon got stuffed. I mean, that was just kind of like, okay, but then fine. They got another stop. And then Mixon they're in the Chargers 45, and then Mixon had that untouched fumble. That was complete, and yet that was just sucked the air out of the building. Completely devastated that game. You went from having all the momentum, about to go ahead. Oh no, it's a defensive touchdown. Now we're behind 9, and now the Chargers are pinning their ears back. Burrow is getting smacked around.
Burrow, man, he's not going to make it, man. They are just, he gets crushed.
I think he's going to make it through the game. You saw that sequence right before halftime. I don't know if he did or not.
His hand looked swollen.
He couldn't even throw the ball. Yeah. I mean, he couldn't even grip it. You could see him on the sideline. He was grimacing.
He might swell up this week and he may not be able to play. Wouldn't be surprising. But he was getting drilled. I just was switching back now and then of the game, and he was getting drilled. And I'm like, it's just, you can't have your number one quarterback. It's okay if you take a sack now and then. Brady usually takes a sack or kind of crumbles down when the rush is coming. Yeah. Burrow gets drilled. I mean, It's just it is not, you cannot take that many of those kind of hits at the NFL level. So I'd be a little worried if I were a Bengals fan. And yet they had the game. I don't know. It's just, I'm always wrong about the Chargers and Bengals. I always pick the wrong. I had the Raiders against the Bengals. I just got it all wrong. I never know when they're going to show up. They're so all or nothing.
The Chargers and Bengals are that Spider-Man gif. Every week you're like, hey, it's you. You don't know which version of them is going to show up. They're learning how to be a good, it's not just having the talent, it's learning how to to bring it every week, to get by when you don't have your best and you have your A game. And you got 2 young coaches in Taylor and Staley. And I think just how to motivate these guys and how to game plan these guys. I mean, I think that's a real thing still, even at the professional level. It doesn't sound like it should be, but the NFL is such a freaking grind. You add another week this year. it's tough. I mean, I think it was Tyler Boyd that straight up and said, we overlooked the Jets earlier this year. We all said we didn't, but we did overlook them. And I'm pretty sure, you feel, you get high on your own supply. You feel pretty good about yourself, and then you get smacked in the mouth again. And that's kind of where the Bengals are at. And they had some devastating injuries. Their right tackle was missing this game to begin with, and that was a big deal. They lost their best linebacker in Logan Wilson. For a while, Boyd was out. For a while, Burrow looked like he was going to. I tweeted that he wasn't going to make it through the game. The way that sequence was right before halftime, they didn't even run a play with like 8 seconds left around midfield because it was going to, or like 6 seconds, because it was going to require a Hail Mary.
Right.
And he couldn't throw. He couldn't even. He was having a hard time making short throws.
Right.
And I think that it was pretty much one of those like, okay, a Hail Mary is not worth it if it's going to break my hand even farther. So we'll see what happens this week. It could be a little trouble here.
Yeah, the Bengals. I don't see them having real legs. And they may make the playoffs. They may not. I think the Dolphins will start pushing at the bottom of that pile. They're still 6-7, but Bengals are 7-5. But who knows, right? I mean, the Steelers are now 6-5-1. They're like the corpse that will never die.
Right.
But yeah, they can't let their number 1 overall pick from last year, a franchise guy who's already torn an ACL, get drilled like that. It's just not acceptable. I mean, it's malpractice, really. I mean, you should just get an extra lineman, extra fullback, extra tight end, and get more conservative if you have to, because the short-term gain is not worth it.
Yeah. So we're going to see what happens this week. Hopefully they bounce back, but because I don't think they're done. I don't think, I'm not like, oh, this team's terrible. They're good. They're just not great. And that's the entire AFC, by the way. Maybe the Pats aren't that way.
I think the Pats are pretty good. I think the Chiefs are good because even with Mahomes not really playing that well, they're still good enough. And then they have that ceiling if they can crack the code on offense. And then I would say that the Bills have some upside with the both sides of the ball. They're pretty good. They just need to run the ball in Buffalo in December and January. But I think there's 3 teams, and then Tennessee is the wild card. I think Tennessee, if they can get AJ Brown back, is always a little dangerous. But the Ravens, I think, are soft. There's just no way. And then those other teams like the Bengals, Browns, Steelers, Raiders, Broncos, Chargers. I don't see the Chargers as a serious contender either.
I don't either. I don't see them stringing together 3 or 4 games. That's the thing. I see them potentially knocking somebody off in the first round of the playoffs and then going down the next week. I can see that happening, but we'll see. It's just hard to see them stringing it together, and that's the thing. The extra thing about the playoffs there too. But I mean, and they lost Bosa early in that game. Bosa has had a history of concussions. Went to go checked for a concussion. Actually got cleared, but Staley said, "I'm making the long-term decision here, and we're not going to play him the rest of this game." And they are able to get by without him. I know that was pretty wild to see that, but they were still able to get a great pass rush on them a little bit there. But anyways, all right, let's talk Niners Seahawks real quick. But before that, our note from our friends at Thrive. Thrive is back for another season of fantasy football, and they're running huge guaranteed contests each week this NFL season. With Thrive Fantasy, you can eliminate the countless hours of research and focus on only the top-tier athletes that have the biggest impact on the game. Sign up today and get a free 6-month RotoWire subscription. Here's how you claim your free RotoWire subscription. 1, visit rotowire.com/thrive. 2, deposit a minimum of $10 and receive a 100% deposit bonus up to $100. 3, play in your first paid contest and receive a free 6-month RotoWire subscription. Big thanks to Thrive. Big thanks to the Blue Wire Network for hosting our podcast all season long. And there's ads that you heard work courtesy of the Blue Wire Network. The Niners were, every time I looked, the Niners were moving the ball. Seattle had like 3rd and 1 million, 2nd and 1 million. But somehow Seattle is like, that was one of those, how the hell did Seattle win this game sort of games? Because the Seahawks didn't look good. Gerald Everett was a giveaway machine. You saw that play at the goal line. That
horrible. That was horrible.
Comically bad.
Terrible.
But it set them up for the safety, which is crazy. They had a couple of drives they strung together, but they had the fake punt. They had the fumble off the kickoff, too, for that matter. special teams was a disaster for the Niners, and of course they lost Cannon on the very first play of the game on that first kickoff. That might have set the tone for a lot of things for the day. You lose a teammate like that, a key special teams player. Maybe that had a lot to do with some of the snafus later on. I don't know, but it was pretty bad. The Niners, they removed. Mitchell wasn't finding it easy, but he's still. I think he's a solid number one back. Kittle looked amazing, but Garoppolo gave away that game with 2 interceptions, and the special teams were terrible.
Reason. I think they were on like first down. I mean, it's one thing if it's 3rd and 12 and you throw a 30-yard pick that a guy catches and gets tackled. It's okay. It's like a short punt. Mm-hmm. But if it's 1st or 2nd down and like 6 or something like that, and you throw a pick, it's just devastating. I mean, it really makes a huge difference. And they were just like right center field pick, that little just throw it over your guy's head right to the safety just standing there. Didn't have to make a good play on it. Yeah, it was, and why can't the Niners ever get more than one star target involved? It's either always all Debo or all Ayuk or all Kittle. Why can't 2 guys have a good game at the same time? Like you can't have 2 guys with 80 yards. It's got to be all or nothing with one of them. It just makes no sense. And then
that second Kittle play was crazy though. That was a 15-yard play that turned into a 60-yard play because
he's a monster.
He's a freak. Yeah. He is so crazy. How he's able to maintain his balance on the sideline there.
But they don't
with speed.
Go to him. They don't, make it a point to get him the ball, and there's something a little weird about how they have such good options. I mean, a good offense would be like running it effectively, throwing to Kittle, throwing to Ayuk, throwing to Debo. The defense doesn't know who's getting the ball next, but they just go to one guy. It's just very strange. And then Elijah Mitchell looked pretty good, but he left the game with a head injury. And I'm like, oh man, I got him in every league. This is the worst timing. Comes right back in the game. So that was good. He should be up for next game. But Seattle, somebody tweets about this. I can't remember who it is. I should give them credit. But that every Seattle game is a weird game. Every single Seattle game.
Yes, it is.
I don't know who it is that keeps saying that, but every Seattle game is like a unique game that you've never seen before. And this one featured the Pete Carroll 56-yard field goal attempt with the mediocre kicker.
Oh,
short and wide. Not even
we
close.
both tweeted about that. That was hilarious.
It's just so Pete Carroll to be like, yeah, let's just do this, And then okay,
my guy's Justin Tucker.
There's like
there's only one left. Justin Tucker. Yeah.
But so there's like 4 or 5 minutes left, and the Seahawks are up 7, and they're like at the 5 or 8 yard line or something, and it's 4th and 2. And I'm Mr. Go for it usually too. And I'm like, just kick the field goal, go up 10 here, because that's 2 scores. There's less than 5 minutes left in the game. I think it's a good time to kick the field goal. But no, they go for it and they make it. So even better, they grind out more time. Okay, now all you got to do is, kick a field goal or whatever, and it's over. They fumble, and then the Niners get the ball. Now, the Niners never scored anyway. But, I mean, dude, you had up 2 scores with less than 5 minutes left if you kick a field goal. You do the crazy thing, and you're like, okay, let's just win it. Okay, great job. And then instead of getting any points, you fumble and give them the ball down 7. It's just such a Seahawks game for that game not to have been over. And
right.
And it was, Russell Wilson still looks terrible. He's still not really making the throws.
No. He missed a wide open Metcalf one time. Meanwhile, he makes the pretty throw to everybody else. As a Metcalf guy, I was tilting big time in this game.
Wilson's just not smooth right now. He's just not, the reason, they won the game. Remember, they got that fake punt touchdown from Travis Homer. They faked it and he just ran the whole way for the touchdown. It was easy. So they didn't play that well either on offense.
Right.
So it was just a very random game. The Gerald Everett thing, as you said, just the whole thing is the Seahawks is random. There's always a fake punt touchdown in the Seahawks game. It's so bizarre what they do.
Yeah, it is. It is. Pete Carroll's is Pete Carroll done at the end of the year?
I don't know. If he doesn't want to be, I don't think they'll fire him. I don't think.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they
made the playoffs last year, didn't they?
I know. And
so you had 1 year where Russ misses 6 games and either fire him for that after 10 years of making the playoffs every year. I don't think so.
Probably not. But man, they look terrible. They look terrible. Even when they win, they look terrible. It was wild to see that.
Ridiculous. It's just so ridiculous.
Yeah. Trying to think what else. What else takeaways from Week 13? There's a couple other games that were smaller of scale, but obviously the Rams squashed the Jags. Not much to talk about with that game.
No. Cooper Kupp on an all-time pace still.
Yeah.
So that's big. And then you've got what else happened? Oh, Jonathan Taylor got 32 carries.
Yeah, we haven't talked about that game.
Sorry, Ted Bell, with our carries bet. He's going to go way over 240 or 250, whatever we bet. It's just that they don't give the ball to the scrubs anymore when the game's in doubt. Jonathan Taylor is just.
But that game was never in doubt, by the way.
No, it wasn't.
Showed no signs of life.
They had nothing. Yeah.
I mean, they benched Taylor in this game, which they probably should have done. And you should probably find out. I mean, I feel bad for Tyrod Taylor because he is who he is. I mean, he hasn't shown much lately anyhow, but he's always the caretaker guy. He's never he never really got that. And maybe in Buffalo, he got a little bit of a chance.
He was good that year. He used to throw the deep ball to second year Sammy Watkins, who had a big year. That was actually a good combo, Taylor to Watkins. Taylor's always been pretty good. I mean, yeah, if he had come in with the Patriots, maybe we had a better career, or good, the Chiefs or something. But he's also not good enough that you're like, oh, what a tragedy. He could have been one of the greats. I don't think he would have been great. I think he could have been good. He's okay. He's not a bad quarterback. He's a good backup to have, I would say.
Yeah. I think one of the common themes is a lot of teams are just off a little bit, whether it's Lamar and the Ravens or Russell Wilson. They're just off. Even Mahomes, just off a little bit.
Right. The good players are not good. Josh Allen is off. I mean, they're all really Aaron Rodgers looks good. Brady isn't, peak Brady right now, but he's himself. He'll get 4 touchdown passes and make the right reads. Like Brady's not off for what he has left. Rodgers is not off. But all the other superstars now, Kyler Murray, here's one thing I'll say. I always underestimate the Cardinals. I always think they're going to come to earth, and they never do. And Murray scored 2 rushing touchdowns, I think, and had a lot of rushing yards and 10 rushes or something. If Murray is using his legs again, A, he's over the injury, that means, right? And B, he's QB1. When Murray uses his legs, he's QB1. When he starts not running for touchdowns, he's just a guy in fantasy. Right. But he's QB1 right now. That's my QB1.
Yeah. The Bears could have been in this game, but Dalton was turning the ball over like it was going out of style there. He
did what he had to do for the team of destiny on Thanksgiving, and you can't ask more of him, Jeff. He gave everything he had. He and Matt Nagy, for Matt Nagy's legacy, they gave everything they had to the team of destiny, and there's nothing left.
Yeah, of course. And we thank them for their service. Yeah, exactly. Their watches ended, however, much like this podcast, which is about to end here. Looking forward to East Coast offense. Looking forward to doing Raw Motion Monday on Sirius XM here in about 45 minutes.
Calls.
Yeah. Yeah. The calls will be
people
epic,
get mad at me for people get mad at me for not being very nice to some of these callers. But I said this on Twitter. I said, you have a choice. You can either be nice to the listeners or the callers. And I choose the listeners. So just keep that in mind.
All right. I will keep that in mind, and the listeners should too.
Not you. I'm saying those who would scold me for not being so nice to the callers.
Right. All right. Well, that's going to wrap it up for today. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks to WynnBET for their sponsorship. We got Joe and Jake tomorrow talking about free agents, waiver wire Tuesdays. So make sure to tune in for that. Thanks for listening. Have a great day.